Israel-United Arab Emirates relations had been cool for several decades. But in the 2010s, the countries' informal relations improved considerably and they began engaging in extensive, unofficial cooperation based on their joint opposition to Iran's nuclear program and regional influence. In 2015, Israel opened an official diplomatic mission in Abu Dhabi to the International Renewable Energy Agency. In a significant warming of official Israeli-UAE relations, Israel and the United Arab Emirates formally agreed in August 2020 to normalize relations in a United States brokered deal that also requires Israel to halt its plan to annex parts of the West Bank, including the Jordan Valley. A joint statement issued by the UAE, Israel and the United States said that the three countries had agreed to the full normalization of relations between Israel and the United Arab Emirates. The signing ceremony was held on 15 September 2020. Turkey and Iran both criticized the agreement. On 16 August 2020, the UAE for the first time established telephone links to Israel by unblocking direct dialing to Israel's +972 country code. The first direct commercial flight from Israel to the UAE was an El Al flight on 31 August 2020. On 24 January 2021, the official Israeli embassy in the UAE was opened with Eitan Nara serving as an acting ambassador, chargé d'affaires. Mohammed Al-Khaja was selected to be the first UAE ambassador to Israel, the first president of the UAE after the UAE became an independent country in 1971. Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan referred to Israel as the enemy of the Arab countries. After the assassination of Mahmoud al-Mabhouh in Dubai on 19 January 2010, the UAE called via Interpol for the arrest of Mir Dagan, director of Israel's Mossad. Israel has neither denied nor confirmed any involvement. Dubai's chief of police, Dhahi Khalfan Taman, stated that all travelers suspected of being Israeli will not be allowed into the country, even if they arrived on foreign passports. After the incident, the UAE later proposed repairing its covert relationship with Israel through a deal where Israel would provide armed drones to them. But this was rejected by Israel due to concern that it would antagonize the United States. Relations between the two countries had been improving since then. After the inauguration of US President Barack Obama in 2009, the Israeli and UAE ambassadors to the United States jointly urged the incoming administration's Middle East advisor to adopt a tougher line on Iran. Obama lifted sanctions on Iran after signing the JCPOA. In September 2012, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met with UAE Foreign Minister Abdullah bin Zayed Al Nahyan in New York City. Although they agreed on the threat of Iran, the UAE refused to publicly improve relations without progress in the Israel-Palestine peace process. In 2015, the Israeli ambassador to the United States, Ron Dermer, briefed his UAE counterpart Youssef Al-Otaiber on Israel's opposition to the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action and urged the UAE to take a more active role in opposing the deal. Close to the end of Obama's presidency, U.S. intelligence agencies became aware of a phone communication between the two countries' officials, including between Netanyahu and a senior UAE leader, and a meeting between Netanyahu and UAE leadership in Cyprus, which was focused on cooperation against Iran. After the election of Donald Trump as U.S. president, both Israel and the UAE lobbied for a rapprochement between the United States and Russia to contain Iranian influence in Syria. In June 2017, leaked emails revealed that the UAE and Saudi Arabia cooperate with Israel against Iran. Close relations were established between the UAE and the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, a pro-Israel, neoconservative think tank also known for its influence on the administration of U.S. President Donald Trump, in order to find ways of hampering Iran's ability to engage in business activities with major companies around the world. In July 2017, the UAE mediated a meeting between Israeli intelligence and Khalifa Haftar, the head of the Libyan National Army, which is supported by the UAE in the Second Libyan Civil War. to negotiate Israeli military aid to Haftar's forces. In March 2018, Netanyahu met with Otaiba and the Bahraini ambassador to the United States at a restaurant in Washington, D.C., where the issue of Iran was discussed. On 10 October 2018, Dermer and Otaiba shared a table at the annual dinner of the Jewish Institute for National Security of America, where they were seen talking to one another. On 16 January 2010, Israel's Minister of National Infrastructure Uzi Landau attended a renewable energy conference in Abu Dhabi. He was the first Israeli minister to visit Abu Dhabi. In January 2016, Israel's energy minister visited the UAE at the site of International Renewable Energy Agency headquarters in Abu Dhabi. In September 2018, the UAE hosted SICRA,